Welcome to the Goal Podcast, news and commentary from Gun Owners Action League, your leading voice for the Massachusetts gun owner.
I'm Jeff, across a different table from Garrett, as from our normal table.
Yeah, this is a different table, but we've got a special group of people here tonight. We're on with Jim Wallace, Executive Director, Gun Owners Action League. Welcome.
Yeah, we went from Wayne's World basement to the bunker.
And also John Green, Goals Director of Education and Training, is joining us today.
I've been to better bunkers, Jim. Just saying.
Welcome, gentlemen. So the focus of this episode is the only thing that's really up for talking about right now. It's HD.4420. So we typically keep this show pretty family friendly, but this is bullshit. So
well said.
If there's any small children or even little pets in the room, you may want to ask them to leave because this one's not going to be pretty.
Yeah. So here we go. So before we dive into the bill proper, I was hoping that we could do lay some groundwork real quickly. So this occurs to me, and I think most of us feel pretty much the same, that this is backlash because of what happened when NYSRPA v. Bruin dropped last year from the Supreme Court, shut down a lot of the provisions out of places like New York, California, and some of our stuff here as well.
Yeah, this is actually a bigoted tantrum.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. I mean, you look at California, New York, the 6 states that Bruin really affected because the rest of the country was fine with it. And basically what they're doing is emulating Governor Wallace of Alabama after Brown v. Board of Education times 10. This is a full-blown tantrum, and people really need to understand, and Jeff said it earlier, that, most everybody knows we are not Chicken Little. The sky is falling every time a bill is filed. Matter of fact, we're usually talking people off the ledge because it was filed by a wingnut.
Yeah, right.
And it's not
this is never going anywhere. This is some idiot just doing. Yeah,
calm
right.
down. Whether it's Marjorie Decker or Dave Linsky or whatever, the typical wingnuts that are filing bills.
So they're just doing constituent service.
Yeah,
this isn't going anywhere.
That's all.
But
this is serious. This is an historic event. There is no time in modern history where the state government of Massachusetts has singled out a community of people for destruction. Never in modern history has this been done. And it's there. You cannot, I guess, exaggerate the importance and the breadth of this, because typically in the past they have tried to separate us by groups of gun owners,
they'll pick on the hunters and they'll pick on the
assault weapon guys or the whatever.
Action pistol shooters, three gun.
Sure,
right.
Yeah. Not this time. This time they came after the entire community. I don't care if you're 5 or 85. I don't care what type of gun you own. I don't care if you just have a single shot 22 or you have stuff that we drool over. They are coming after all of us, all at the same time. There is no way you are going to exercise your Second Amendment rights in this state if this passes. You will not be able to, period. No joke, no exaggeration. We don't do that here at Goal. We tell you like it is. We tell you when to be concerned, when not to be concerned. This is full alarm. This is an absolute full-on assault of a civil right by a standing government in this country. Have never seen this in my lifetime.
Here we go.
The regulars are coming out.
So after Bruin, they tried that stuff last summer. That kind of went away. Then it was a listening tour this winter and spring, right? So the background on that, Ron Mariano says, Representative Day, go do some listening tours, go across the state, see ostensibly go see what people want, in their gun rights infringements.
Yeah, I guess what we were missing on that listening tour was sign language interpreters, because apparently Michael Day's deaf as a post.
Yeah. Not much listening going on in the
Well, if you
tour.
read the articles, no. He absolutely took Gun Owners Action League seriously, and that's why they are completely overhauling the licensing system to make it more complicated.
Yeah, right, because that's totally what we were after. So the listening tours, totally bad faith listening tours. I don't believe for a minute that there was any good faith even in the beginning. wraps up, 3 weeks ago now? And a scant 2 weeks later, this nonsense drops.
Well, what people need to understand, too, is, we had to at least try the process because for 25 years, I've made a good reputation of being very reasonable, straightforward with the State House. I mean, I've done a lot of hard work and have done some good work in the past. Is everything perfect? Not even close. But we've been able to do some really good work with that State House since I've been there. This is the first time in my career that I'm just dumbfounded.
They have raised a middle finger to all of us.
They've just taken away the KY and just had at it. This is the first time where I've been flat out lied to. I kind of expected it because John will tell you before the listening tour started, Chairman Day asked us to come into the State House and meet with him and his staff. So John, I, and Mike went in. And when I tried to present the data to him from the state, because he kept calling these things, we have the best gun laws in the country, they make us safe. No, that's not the case. And I tried to present the state's own data and adamantly refused, would not talk about it, was getting actually kind of angry that I was pushing it. And I knew at that time, I smelled it out. I said, well, we still have to go through the steps. We're still, a democratic republic. So this is, we got to do what we got to do. But it was obvious. This was already written. They were actually, in my opinion, and I don't have any evidence of this, at least hard evidence, the listening tour was a stall tactic while every town in the Gifford Foundation helped them draft this bill.
Oh,
For sure.
Well,
I think the timing of it.
They had a photo op with Gabby Giffords a few weeks ago while the listening tour was still going on.
Of course.
Yeah, I think the timing of this indicates that this was something long standing in process. A year after Bruins, that was a year of lead up.
Yes.
A year of work.
After the tantrums came down, they're like, "Oh, California, New York, hold on a second. Let's show you what
seeing what all the other states did, having to go with the one-upsmanship for sure. But yeah, I think the last year was them working on this bill, and this listening tour was the dog and pony show, so that they can say, "Yep, we checked off the box that we listened to quote unquote the people."
They didn't listen to anybody.
Absolutely
and
not.
then put together what they
No other group of people, no other community of people in the state would face this kind of blatant bigotry from their own government. Can you imagine taking this 140, whatever it is, page bill,
140, two pages?
And matching it,
141 pages.
Matching it to, okay, people of color, you have the right to vote. But here's 140 pages of stuff you need to read before you do that.
Yeah. Here's some regulations.
Hey, ladies, we know you want equal rights and equal pay, but
here's a written exam you need to pass
Yes.
to make sure that you're on.
Hey, rainbow community, you can marry whoever you want, hang out, but there's 140 pages of stuff you need to go through before you get to that. So no other community would face this. None. This is flat out bigotry by our own government.
So within an hour or so of this thing dropping. Now, did you guys have any indication that this was coming?
We knew something was coming. I mean, but
oh, sure, that was we knew something was going to happen.
But I even talked to a lot of state reps, obviously, in the past week, and a few even today, and they said we met with him, and he said, "Nah, it's going to be ghost guns and live fire." That's what he told the legislators.
It's a damn sight more than that.
So you can hardly find the ghost guns amongst the clouds there, but. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, when this dropped, Mike Harris texted me. I'm at the doctor's office just having a checkup, and he goes, "Call me immediately." I'm like, "Okay, who did Angie kill?"
This can't be good.
Sir, your blood pressure's going up.
Yeah. That thing you have in your chest, it just went off again. But it was just jaw dropping, even for us. We never expected anything. Well, who would?
I started reading it.
Who would?
I was going through it slowly, and I'm going, okay, ATVs, all right, that's there, and then some record-keeping stuff, and then, all right. And it was like, then things started dropping.
It just
like
kept
the big
going.
ones. It just kept going, and like heavier and heavier, every little piece.
We laughed because, the first day we're sitting here as a staff, what we do is pull stuff up on the screen, and, here in the office, and we're going through it. It's a good thing we didn't make a drinking game for every time one of the staffers said, "What the F?" Because we would have never made it till noon. I mean, it was just you. I just cannot say this boldly enough. I never thought in my life I would see anything like this filed in the United States.
Especially after the Bruin decision.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Especially after Bruin.
They should have been repealing laws.
Yes.
Not putting everything in a blender and adding some, I don't know, mercurochrome?
Something.
Whatever.
So ultimately, he lied. They lied to the gun owners. They lied to the other legislators. And I think that might be a ray of saving grace.
Maybe people will be pissed off enough that they got lied to say,
Even the moms. Everybody that went to these things said, to a T, lawful gun owners are not the problem.
Yeah.
We have to address crime.
Oh,
They said that.
theme.
That was his opening statement at every listening tour. LTC holders are not the problem here. Huh.
And yet nothing in this bill has anything to do with other than LTC.
Yeah, it has
Correct.
nothing to do with
There's nothing
prosecuting
about
any crimes.
No increased penalties for crimes. No interdiction at the street level. There's nothing in here that doesn't directly affect license holders.
It just creates more criminal code.
You basically, back when Maura did her thing, I coined the phrase, she made a couple 100,000 people, we call ourselves felons in waiting.
Yeah, just because of the assault weapons thing.
Right. Now, there's 550,000 people that are felons in waiting.
Yep.
And that includes police officers.
Yeah.
Because
because of that stuff. Yeah.
They can't comply with this either.
The hunters, the cops,
Right. Yeah. No, it's going to shut down retailers.
Yep.
Not an exaggeration, because under this proposal, the common carriers like FedEx, UPS will not be able to comply with the storage and transportation laws. They just won't.
They can't possibly.
They can't.
No.
It's not possible.
And what's going to even hurt those carriers worse is even if they're not delivering here, if they're traveling through here,
Yeah.
they have to comply. And
So all of the depots in Massachusetts, that's going to be a problem.
yeah. No, it's going to shut them down. The other thing, which is so, I mean, it's all far fetched. It's just so ridiculous. If we're reading this correctly, FOPA's out the window, which is the Firearm Owners
Yes.
Protection Act.
Yeah.
at
Yeah, the
at
Volker
federal
McClure
level.
Act.
Correct. Yep.
It's done, because under this legislation, if you're even traveling through Mass, you have to register your guns and magazines ahead of time before you come through the state.
Yeah, we
And
don't
of
have
course-
a gun registry
right.
either, by the way.
Oh, we will now.
Yeah.
And you can't do that unless you're a licensee, unless you have an LTC.
That's right.
So,
Yeah, and if you
and
read
then,
the
by
language,
the way, you can't even get an out-of-state LTC anymore.
if you read
So,
the language of the bill, it outlines that non-resident LTCs, the guidance, at least it seems like, is that unless you have it as part of your job function to carry a firearm, that you will not be permitted to get an LTC in the state of Massachusetts as a non-resident.
So the bill is HD 4420, dropped out of Representative Michael Day, who's at 31 Middlesex, I think.
Yes.
And it's
Stoneham.
got Stoneham. Yep, it's got about 10 co-sponsors at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, for those of you who don't know it, we have nicknamed this the Lawful Citizens Imprisonment Act, because it's what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
There is no I mean, you've said it again. You've said it before. You just can't overstate it. There is no way to be a gun owner in Massachusetts and legally comply with this bill in its entirety. There's no way.
Yep.
So let's go down the list of who's actually supporting this. Who's put their signature at the
Do we
bottom of the
have
page? Yeah.
I really want to.
Well, people need to know.
yeah.
So obviously Michael Day, this is his debacle. David Linsky, Christopher Hendricks, Jennifer Armini, Mindy Dahm, Tram Wynn, Adrian Ramos, Rodney Elliott, Patricia Duffy, David Rogers, and Kenneth Gordon. Those are the people that signed their name to this.
Chris Hendricks is the only surprise to me,
Yeah.
because he's always been a reasonable guy to talk to, but
Not so much.
no,
Not anymore.
and for some reason he's not returning my calls. I don't understand
Go
it.
figure.
That's
Yeah.
weird. That's weird.
Yeah, but he's on the Judiciary Committee, so it's a judiciary bill. But the weird thing is, and I don't know if it's just because of the holiday coming up, but which none of them should be celebrating anyway. But
right. There's no freedom
That list
here.
hasn't grown.
It hasn't grown.
It's stopped.
So the bill's just over a week old now.
Yeah.
It
Well, I
got
think-
those 10 voices on, the second day or so, and that was it.
That was it. That was it.
So you're saying that's not typical?
No, a bill like this, especially because it's the speaker's bill,
Yeah.
Democrats would be rushing to
big
put their
dog
names
pile
to
on
it.
it.
Right.
So, I mean, again, this isn't a wingnut bill. This is the speaker's bill. So
Yeah,
people
and-
would rush to file onto.
Yeah,
the
not a
speaker's
couple
bill.
pages, not
No.
140 plus pages.
Yeah.
So the last 72 hours and change, a little more probably at this point. You guys have done a tremendous amount of work distilling this down to a digestible format, because the bill itself is like, replace this word in line 45 of this section with this whole paragraph.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I think it's designed.
Yeah, and so it's by design to be
So
complicated.
to break that down and put it into concrete terms that an average person can read and understand, tremendous amount of work.
Normally, what we would do is come up with what they call a red line version, and
like a text compare, and
Yeah.
you go, yeah, okay.
it was not practical to do for people with this bill, because what they did was they rewrote every section of gun law.
This
I
is
don't think, John,
a
did we
complete
find a
rip-up.
section that was there?
Hard press.
So this is a complete rip up and rewrite of
It's
140.
the only truthful thing about this whole thing was that it was a top-down rewrite of Massachusetts gun law.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that was truthful about this whole situation.
So it was difficult because even us, 25 years of knowledge, I joked, John had a couple of mass gun law classes the other day, whatever, and I said, just show up and go, never mind,
yeah, right.
and walk out the door.
What is there to talk about?
Yeah, so because everything I'm going to teach you probably is going to be gone in the next month or so. But yeah, it's a complete rewrite. So even referring to sections of law that you previously knew what they meant no longer mean that. So it was incredibly difficult, and what we decided in the end, the easiest way for us to do it, and this is what we did, was go section by section. We ignored a lot of sections because it's just changed this to this, and really didn't get to the meat of what we wanted to do. But the sections that really had some meat there, what we would do is actually copy, paste it to a document, put it up on the screen, and then turn that section into bullet points. It was the easiest way to do it for our members, because they're not going to read, section 129.
You can't.
It's not possible for normal people to read that way.
And I will tell you, after day 3, we stopped. We just stopped because at some point it's like, well, somebody died of 150 stab wounds, but you missed those 2. Well, it really didn't matter. Okay. So
it's like it's gone so far beyond the pale that at some point it's not even worth
this isn't the
trying
kind
to
of bill
know
where
all the
Resources
rest
are
of
better
it.
spent elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
There you
The
go.
networking, the bringing people up to date, educating them on the
this
changes.
isn't the kind of bill that you can parse out 1 or 2 really egregious things.
No.
It's the
it's
entire
all
thing.
egregious.
Well, so let's
The whole bill has to go.
Let's
Mike
dive
Harris,
in.
Mike Harris, this bill is nefarious.
Yes.
And that's the term I've been using. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's our stance so far, anyway. And we always have to remind people we work in a fluid world, so you got to move. What Bruce Lee say: put water in the cup, you become the cup. Right. So I'm just going to become the shotgun for a little while and go from there.
I thought you were going to say shot glass.
No, well, that's true. Yeah. Okay, I like you thinking. By the way, 4 roses, folks. 4 roses.
We're going to need a bigger cup.
We're going to need a bigger bottle.
4 roses, Jackman.
Yeah. But we're working under the premise now we're not offering amendments. We're just not.
There's no point.
I've had a bunch of legislators come to me, Jim, I want to help. You got to give me some amendments. And I've told all of them, we're not doing it.
No.
You cannot amend this to a point that is even remotely acceptable to civil rights.
Here, here.
Period. Can't. Well, I should say there's one amendment. Everything after, delete.
Yeah, right. Everything after filed by.
Yeah.
Everything that guy said is
Bullshit.
Yeah.
That's right. My cousin Vinny. Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Green. Let's jump. I want to. So you spend a lot of time giving gun law classes.
The great majority of my time traveling the state, teaching rooms of 20 to 200 people are Massachusetts gun laws.
So
It's about a 3.5, 4-hour seminar.
I've gone to it
Soup to nuts.
6 times now, and I still don't have all of it in my head.
Either do I.
So you've also spent time, giving gun law lectures to law enforcement.
Absolutely.
What does this do?
It changes everything. So nothing is left unturned, as Jim stated. But if we're talking about law enforcement, we had a meeting with a former chief of police here in Massachusetts, and he pointed out a section in the bill that we had done the research on. This prohibits off-duty police officers from carrying a firearm in sensitive places. We have to remember, they've determined all places that are private to be sensitive places.
This is probably it's all garbage, but this is one of the several biggest
Sure, we're
pieces
talking
of absolute,
supermarkets. So when we
Yeah.
say private, we're talking the local Big Y, Peach Shop, Price, all the different supermarkets you can't go into unless they post their facility is allowing you to have your
Yeah.
concealed firearm.
All government property. Now
All
they
government property.
caveat that with any government property where administration takes place. I don't know where it doesn't.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, even a hunting field.
This is
I've seen administration take place in a hunting field.
It's
Oh, absolutely.
all public, private, and commercial property without
they
exception,
call-
really.
Industrial, commercial,
Yep.
residential.
Unless you either have a permission slip or they have posted a sign explicitly allowing carry there.
Yes.
This is essentially the death of concealed carry in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I will say this headquarters be the first to have a poster.
We're going to
up.
put a posted sign out here?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be one where I'd tell people, if you have to ask if you can carry a gun in here, then this isn't the office for you. You should know, you need to know what you're getting
In
into.
here, of all places.
Yeah, well, you got to understand, our safe place here is a reloading table.
But it goes directly against the premise of McDonald, Heller,
Yes.
everything.
It
the right to keep and
shoots all of
bear
that down.
arms.
Yes.
That's what they talked about in New York. That was the whole part of the Bruin case, is that you have the right to not only keep them, but bear them in
Said it
public.
right out loud in the
in a
opinion. You
meaningful
can't
way.
just have, blanket prohibited spaces.
Did you notice that the entire listening tour was held at gun-free zones?
Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? Right?
funny, huh?
It was
By
like
design.
Universities.
Absolutely
or-
by design.
Schools, universities. Weird, huh? So that is one of the biggest, just horrible, provisions of this bill is the blanket permission slips thing. What do you think that does to hunting?
Has yet to be seen, but
Well, if you're hunting private land, you're done.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's no presumptive permission. There's no nothing.
No,
It's gone.
which in Massachusetts, we've been able to fight that off because literally you could walk through a set of woods, not see a person for 3 hours,
Yeah.
but you might be walking across 10 property owners.
Sure.
You have no idea who owned that stone wall.
Right.
And nobody has ever had a problem with that. Fine, go out.
And if they post their land, you walk around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
correct.
Unload your gun, walk around,
Yep.
and just be on your merry way. But, wait until the deer herd quadruples in eastern Mass.
the Lyme and the car accidents.
Yeah, wait until the coyotes are eating breakfast with your kids.
Yeah, right.
So,
Or eating your kids for breakfast.
yeah, well, not in my house because John will tell you, even my daughter was young, you come within arm's reach, she's reaching for a knife and a A1 steak sauce. But, coyote's not good eating, but hey, in a tough situation.
It's eaten.
It's
Any port in a storm.
Yeah,
So-
no, it's hunting. Matter of fact, and that even goes so far as, and we're not sure about this still. If you're under 21,
Yeah.
you can't hunt with a semi-automatic anything.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
So
And it goes further than that. It says you can't even touch a firearm for any purpose if you're under 15.
No,
Did I read
that's
that
that's
right?
not actually correct.
Okay.
So
No.
Please correct
if
me
you're
on that.
15, the
Yeah.
exemptions for 50 people not yet 15, rifles and shotguns, which
Yeah.
are not semi-automatic, for two activities. One is hunting, one is target shooting. They are not exempt from any training. They are not exempted from taking part in shooting sports competitions.
So no sports,
So-
no training.
No training, no scholastic clay target programs. If they're going to shoot scholastic clay target, no scholastic action shooting programs. But if they're going to shoot clay targets, now you're asking somebody not yet 15, probably smaller in stature, to use a fixed breech gun.
Yeah,
right.
With full recoil.
With full recoil, rather than these softer shooting 20 gauge and 12 gauge gas guns. The people that wrote this legislation, they are ignorant. They have no integrity. Oh, I'm trying to hold back on the curse words.
Don't hold back, man.
Well,
let it fly. Let it fly.
The other thing is,
we got
too,
the
This one is rated R.
they know, and this goes with everything in society, not just our stuff. If you don't get the kids young, you lose them.
Correct.
Oh, that's got to be by design, right?
Oh,
They're like, we're going to
absolutely.
make sure
Yeah.
that the kids are.
We're going to negate an entire generation from the Second Amendment.
Well, that's why California passed that whole thing that you cannot do anything that promotes firearms in any way to any minor.
Yeah.
So even if you
So
have an issue
advertisements that they could possibly come across on online.
in theory,
Yeah.
if you left a copy of Concealed Carry magazine on your living room table and your kid brought their friends over, you would be in violation of that law.
Yep. All right. Implications of the redefinition of firearms. John, this is right up your alley.
So right off the top,
Dun, dun,
their term new assault weapons section, right? So we've always, or I shouldn't say we've always. What year did Romney sign our assault weapons ban in? Was that
90.
He didn't sign an assault weapons ban,
No.
but the Romney bill was 04. There
Was- okay,
There was
04.
no assault weapons. Matter of fact, let me clarify that. Take a second. Just let me clarify that. In 2004, we worked really hard to get a lot of little things fixed.
131M?
Yeah. So yes, but hold on. When the bill was so badly messed up by the chair of public safety, Jared Barrios, in the Senate, came to the floor twice for a vote, and he messed it up so bad. The only time in my career, publicly on the floor, I saw the Senate president take a bill away from a chairman and give it to another senator.
Jesus, wow.
So,
Like, you screwed this up so badly.
God, it was terrible. So anyway, it was things like, make the license a reasonable size, like a driver's license. It created the Firearms Licensing Review Board. There was a bunch of stuff that we got. Well, just before it hit the floor, they came to us and said, hey, we want to add this. And it was because we knew our AW ban in Mass wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
The federal ban was about to sunset.
2004, yeah.
So they wanted to permanently attach the definitions at the federal level to our law. And we looked at it and said, yeah, because the federal definitions had all these carve-outs.
Yeah.
That huge list of guns that you could never legally consider to be assault weapons.
Yeah, right.
M1A,
These were basically permitted.
What's the
M1
the
carbine,
Ruger, the Mini
Ruger
14,
14.
Yep.
tons and tons of guns. And initially, for whatever reason, well, I know why. It's because John Rosenthal told Romney that we were signing an assault weapons bill. And we got trashed viciously nationwide. Go, you supported this, and I hope your duck guns rust. People didn't understand what we did, why we did it.
Yeah.
Later they did, but as usual, like John says, Jimmy, you could run out of, what is it?
You could save a flock of baby ducklings from a burning building, and people would find fault with it.
Yeah. So because I didn't save the parrot, but so we did that purposefully, and to some extent, that's why even we don't think it was a pullback, but it kind of moderated what Maura wanted to do in 16.
Yeah. Yes.
This bill removes that protection.
This codifies what she did unilaterally in 2016 and goes further with it.
It removes the old federal protections
Yep.
so they can drastically expand what a assault style firearm is now.
Well, that's part of just even the name change, going
Yep.
from labeling something an assault going from an assault rifle to an assault weapon to now it's assault style.
Yes.
So now we're talking about an aesthetic,
Yeah.
a visual aesthetic.
And they brought it down to a single feature test.
All right,
So
before we get to assault weapons,
Okay.
firearms definition. This is going to affect people. Well, this has kind of wide implications, right? So they're redefining what makes a firearm in Massachusetts.
And that would be the genetic term to mean any type of gun, including stun guns. The new term now considers the frame or receiver or barrel as to legally be a firearm. Again, the frame, receiver, and barrel are now or would be statutorily defined as a firearm. So that means any of these components must meet every criteria to include safe storage, and transport, and reporting requirements.
And we'll get to reporting later on because they want to serialize every goddamn thing in the world.
Everything.
Yeah.
All right. So everything is a firearm. So no more frame transfers. That's all done. So that means everything is subject to dealer sales. Everything, if dealers even exist in the state next year, everything would be subject to the rosters.
Well,
Possibly.
Well, it doesn't even have to meet a roster. It's just the fact that
Everything
you
is a
can
firearm.
no longer buy a frame or a receiver because now it has to be registered.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
now, what does that do for 80% lowers? God me, because I have no idea how they're going to make this work. The state doesn't know how they're going to make this work.
It's a massive expansion of reporting.
Yeah.
Let's face it, state police didn't know anything about this. At least the folks involved in the curriculums and the approved firearms courses and BFS instructors, right? We don't believe Firearms Records Bureau was included in any of this.
In any of this.
No, they don't have the bandwidth to do this stuff. Now, to make sure people understand this, so John said it, but if you have a receiver, a frame, or a barrel,
For crying out loud.
you now...
How many barrels do I have in my safe?
There's a joke there, but I'm going to leave it alone.
There's a whiskey barrel.
Came to a dead stop right there. Didn't it?
Wow. Brakes came on. I don't have a big filter anymore, but that one clicked in.
So having to lock your barrels.
So you're going to have to meet storage requirements
Yes.
for a barrel.
Everything. Everything.
So you can't put a trigger lock on a barrel. So that means, John, where's the new definition of secure?
I want to do that next. Safe storage.
Secured in a locked container. At a minimum, the container must be capable of being unlocked only by the means of a key, combination, or similar means, and it must be able to deter all but the most persistent from gaining access. A room or store, even capable of being locked and surveilled, is not sufficient.
So a couple of branches here. Number one, it's no longer just it's a container now. It's no longer just a locking device.
This is based on the Parzik decision. So Parzik was charged with a storage violation under 131L. He was found guilty in the lower courts. He appealed it, and the appellate court is what came out with that statement, will deter all but the most persistent from gaining access. So how does one define persistence in an objective manner? You can't.
You can't.
Right?
You can't possibly.
But look at all these people that have built vaulted rooms. This bill would change all that. Now they would have to put trigger locks on all of those guns in the vaulted room. Absolutely.
In the vaulted room.
And how would UPS or FedEx? They're delivering a barrel. How do they even know that it's a barrel?
Right.
Now that's going to have to be secured. A barrel, that's going to have to be a really, really long cable lock.
Yeah. Big long cable going through a barrel.
But it's important to note that retailers are not exempt from this.
That's right.
100% they aren't.
Storage of guns in a retail location, right?
So
But are
glass
they going to
cases,
put them all away every night?
Glass cases are gone.
No more glass display cases. They're going to have to lock up every gun every night, or even
Fit every gun with a trigger lock.
Yeah, they'll have to have trigger locks out during the day. They'll have to. Yikes! All right. So that's the retail side of things. Personally side of things, everything's secured in a locked container.
Now, retailers, I don't know if you want to kind of move on to that. Not only is the problem common carriers, which we've already discussed.
Yep.
If you present under this proposal a retailer with an expired license, which, by the way, is legal in Mass.
Oh, yeah.
The retailer is supposed to confiscate that license.
And then notify law enforcement.
Notify law enforcement, notify CJIS, which is the Criminal History Systems Division, Justice, something, whatever.
Whatever the hell
Criminal
it is.
Justice Information System.
Yeah, they get paid by the word when they made that one up. And they are to instruct the license holder on their duty to surrender their firearms and ammunition. Can you name a retailer that's going to do that?
Not a one.
No. And
hope
even
not.
they know how bad it is because in the bill they give them civil and criminal dispensation.
Penalties. Okay.
No, so they're
So as
covered.
long as you do this, we're going to cover you. We're going to indemnify you.
Yeah.
And Utah, if a store owner allows you to possess firearms in their establishment, they cannot be sued civilly or criminally should something bad happen when a citizen is using a firearm to defend life in that particular. Just the opposite of what they're doing in Massachusetts.
That's
America. That's what Utah is. America. Yeah. We have to remember. We've got America. God bless them. All these states that say, great job, Supreme Court, with the Bruin decision. This is the 6 named states that Jim's already talked about earlier in the show.
Yeah. You got 44 states that say, to some degree, they say, all right, we're good
Thumbs
to go.
up.
Right?
Absolutely.
Thumbs up. And then you have the 6 children, the 6 4-year-olds who say, how dare you tell me that I can't infringe on people's rights?
Well, this wasn't my one, but somebody brought up to me, because this is Jim Crow.
Basically, yeah.
This is Jim Crow North.
Unfortunately, the kids don't know who Jim Crow is.
Yeah, right.
That's true.
Right.
They don't.
This is like, you're going to tell us that we can't decide who can do these things? Well, guess what? We're going to put all kinds of extra restrictions on things.
Yep.
This flies in the face of about 75 years of Supreme Court precedent.
God, yes. All right, Section 48. Mandatory registration of all guns and feeding devices. No more transaction registry. This is everything serialized, everything reported to the state, including feeding devices, for crying out loud.
Now,
how the hell does that work?
And feeding devices are not just magazines. So if you have a shotgun with a tube on it, that's a feeding device.
So that's a firearm all by itself.
So you have to individually serialize that and register it.
So I got a serial number on my wingmast or whatever, and then the tube mag has a.
If you have a Grand clip,
and you can't just have one.
No. So
that's a serial number.
What was that old Midas commercial? Ping, 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 all the way. Oh, that's a Grand clip, right? So you know how many Grand clips there must be in Massachusetts?
My God.
Do you know how many we have in the office?
Well, Johnny,
can neither confirm nor deny the allegations. But they're saying that you
know how
have
many times we catch Johnny in the closet? I'll be right out. I'm combing my hair.
Touching the Grand clip.
Touching the Grand clip.
But the state seems to
new
be
one. I'm just touching the Grand clip.
But the state does seem to be indicating that in order to serialize these things, you have to get a serial number issued by the state
In advance.
Yes.
In advance from what I read.
Yes. Yep.
Does that sound right to you, John?
So when you talk about the bandwidth,
well, it doesn't sound right. But
I think that's the
correct
representative of
I think the lack of bandwidth for accomplishing something like that is
you
something that the legislators
put. How do you put the infrastructure for something like that?
But here's the thing:
in
is
place?
you don't, and I think that they're intentionally leaning on that.
Yeah.
Because they're removing all the language as best they can for any sort of time structure where you can hold the state accountable. So if there's no time structure for you to get a serial number for the firearm or the feeding device, then you can't register it and you can't have it.
Now, now, not that anybody's going to comply with this, but if you've got a broom-handled Mauser, you're going to etch that mag?
Hell no. Absolutely. You're right. I got a gun that's 90 years old that's never been fired. I'm going to engrave a goddamn serial number into it.
Do you remember the years ago when everybody used to, not everybody, but we've seen so many guns from the 40s, 50s, and early 60s with Social Security numbers etched into the receiver. Hey, this gun would have been worth $12,000, but now it's worth $1,800.
Yeah.
Why?
It's got your serial
Because it has somebody's Social Security number on it.
My good friend Daryl.
I mean, if it was Samuel Colt's Social Security number, or Mr. Garan, that'd be something. John Browning, cool.
He inherited, it was from his grandfather. It was the 1874 lever action Centennial Edition. And he finally got it from his dad, and his dad had etched his Social Security number. They don't speak much anymore.
We're no longer in speaking terms.
But beyond all this registering, now it's saying that there's a mandatory reporting of any modifications or new parts to a gun, and including you have to supply an itemized list of any parts you use if modifying or building a gun.
What the hell does this mean? If I put new grip panels on my 1911? Or if I put new sights on...
Now, just so you know, this is what we stopped when the bump stock bill almost passed.
And that came down.
This piece is what goal stopped, because we kind of knew we weren't going to be able to die on the bump stock hill.
Yep.
And even the Republicans took that as, goal's okay with everything.
Like, no, actually, we're not.
No.
We're picking our battles here.
I'm literally having lunch across the street, and I get a text, hey, they're passing Linsky's bill. Linsky's bill was this.
Was this modifications
Was
thing?
everything.
Yeah.
Even
And
maintenance. That
even
bill included
maintenance.
maintenance.
Oh,
Maintenance.
Jesus. I'm going to clean my gun. I got to tell the state
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, to the point where if you disassembled your gun to clean it, you couldn't reassemble it. You had to bring it to a gunsmith to have it reassembled.
Hey, I think we've all been there before,
Well,
Jim.
No, that's only the Mach
I remember
2.
walking into LaRocca's place when I was, 22, with a box full of 1911 parts. Had never met the man. I had lost the spring cap.
Yeah.
Found the spring cap 6 months later in a potted plant in my mom's house.
How the hell do I put this together?
There's a
believe
line
me.
of 500 people with a Mach 2 Ruger going, I don't know what I'm doing.
No, you don't have the PhD required to put one of those together.
Sorry.
Believe me, when I was cleaning Goals guns, John had a big grin on his face.
Yeah.
Like, this is your problem now.
Yeah. So
All right.
Yeah.
What
you have
the
to provide
hell?
all that.
So anyway,
What the hell is an expiration date?
Hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
It's important for people to know this. We stopped this cold. When the
Yes.
bill moved to the Senate was mad that the House even did it. We had still some good people in the Senate. We got a couple left, but not many. And we were able to completely reverse that bill to a bump stock and turned out trigger cranks. But again, here's something that needs to be said too. Folks, when a bill is introduced like the bump stock bill, shut up. All over the internet. Well, I don't need a bump stock. I can do it this way. I don't need it. I can do it
Oh,
this
yeah.
way. I can do it
get
this
a-
way. You
I
don't
can get a
think
rubber band or a,
you don't think
know,
they're not paying attention?
Yeah.
they're watching that stuff?
Yeah.
Sure they are.
Those are the same people that go online and post, like, here's my plan for the perfect murder.
Yeah.
Like, all right, well, rule one is don't post it
Right.
online.
Don't tell anybody what your plan is.
Well, it was like the first time, ask John, the first time we saw a video that a-hole that put a Glock on a drone, I'm like, you son of
Yeah,
a
right.
bitch.
Yeah.
Look what I can do.
Right.
Don't
That
film
looks-
it.
What a great look that is. All right. What the hell is an expiration date for registrant?
We don't know.
Any idea?
We don't know.
Okay.
Not a clue. Never heard of that term before.
So I don't know. I read what it is, and even in context, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Did
So-
anybody see the definition for delinquent child?
So delinquent children are now prohibited persons, or is that
Yes.
delinquent and child support?
No, delinquent child.
Delinquent
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
You mean the ones that aren't allowed to touch guns anyway, or the other ones?
No, I mean they have come up with a term of delinquent child and then made that a prohibited
Oh,
factor.
meaning like minors that are have run-ins with the
True.
law. et
So if
cetera.
you're you're 12 or 13 and you're struggling
skip
and
school.
for whatever reason, you run away from home, maybe and this is I think really huge for the LGBTQ community. If you have to leave home because you don't feel safe for whatever reason and you get caught as a delinquent child, you are forever prohibited from defending yourself with a firearm. Period. End of sentence. You're done.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because, you made probably a rash emotional decision as someone who isn't even old enough to apply for a permit to learn to drive a car.
John, we come across this occasionally. People that come across stuff like this are like, I'm going to violate. I'm not going to comply with this because it's bullshit, and I'm going to move out of the state. What do prohibitions within a state do to affect your prohibition on a federal level?
Well, if you start to read this bill, you realize the great majority of punishments exceed 2 years.
Yep.
Right. So any guilty finding, regardless of what the actual crime was, if you're found guilty of a crime punishable by more than 2 years, that equates to a federal prohibition. So, as we like to say, you move out of Massachusetts to Montana, to Utah, to Tennessee, Kentucky, right? You're still a prohibited person under federal law.
Yeah.
Because of
You
the punishment
violated
limits that are on
You've been found
Massachusetts
guilty
books.
of a state crime punishable by more than 2 years.
And here's the caveat too. Even if the crime in the state that you're moving to
doesn't
is
carry that
6
sentence.
months.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
It's because the feds
Doesn't
say
matter.
that if you are
Yeah.
convicted of this crime,
State crime, right?
so you can't even move away from it.
The greatest analogy is that we use in so many of our speaking venues. A Massachusetts resident drives into New Hampshire. They have a couple of too many pops at a bar at Hampton Beach. They get charged and found guilty of OUI in New Hampshire. doesn't affect their Second Amendment civil rights in Massachusetts because even a guilty finding is not punishable by more than 2 years. New Hampshire resident drives down to Newburyport, has a couple of too many drinks at the local tavern, gets pulled over and charged with OUI, found guilty because it took place in Massachusetts. That New Hampshire resident cannot own guns in New Hampshire or any other state for the rest of their lives because of that disposition of guilty.
Unbelievable. Yep.
But you get your car back in 90 days.
Oh, God. All right. Serial numbers. We talked briefly about this stuff. Serial numbers on feeding devices, serial numbers on everything. You have to register everything with the state.
Well, here's one I found interesting. Locations that rent firearms now have to report your information, the firearm, and all of the feeding devices that you rented to the state. So if you're even tangentially interested in shooting a gun for whatever reason, you're going to be on the state list now. They're going to have your name. They're going to have exactly what you rented, how many magazines you got. They're probably going to eventually try to shoehorn in something on ammunition. How many rounds did you shoot?
And your occupation.
So as a dealer, if this bill becomes law, we have to notify the state, probably by some means similar to the Merck system that we use now, to report the sale and transfer of guns, right? As a Massachusetts licensee under 122. The bill would require the reporting of ammunition, accessories, magazines, to include your name, your date of birth, your occupation, your sex. What else was there, Jimmy? I think there was one or two other parts.
But all your personally identifiable information,
the name of your firstborn child,
has to go to the state if you even touch a firearm.
Yeah, right. Licensed or not.
Touch a barrel.
Right.
Yeah,
Touch a gun. That's a controlled item now.
Touch a barrel.
It would be.
Yeah.
It would be.
All right.
So those guns in the corner that don't even function, they
right.
have barrels.
Yeah. That barrel is has to be serialized.
Yep.
Privately made firearms, privately made guns, reporting, you obviously have to report it to the state. However, there's a provision in there that says it has to comply with all state and federal safety regulations. Does that mean that we have to, if we build something from scratch, God help us, we have to submit it to agency testing in order to be approved by the state?
You're going to have to get it drop tested.
Really?
Yeah.
So that gun that I
handguns
build
anyway.
myself,
Handguns,
I build myself a handgun somehow after this shit passes.
Unless it gets added, if you can solicit the Gun Control Advisory Board for addition to the Olympic pistol target
So here's
roster.
the Olympic pistol target roster.
Those don't have to be drop tested.
So here's a question.
Johnny's Glock has a 16-inch barrel.
It's not the length of the barrel; it's the width.
That's right.
Now here's a hypothetical. If you build your own firearm and you have to serialize it and register it in 7 days, but you can't serialize and register it and have it as a firearm without passing this test, you would have to send the state an unserialized firearm, have it tested, get it back with an approval, then to get a serial number on it. But you've already sent an unserialized, unregistered firearm to the state.
Well, actually, it'd be to UL Laboratory.
Underwriters.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have an office over
The
in
state
Canton.
doesn't actually do any of their own testing.
No.
Underwriters Laboratory has an office over in Canton. I go there for work every once in a while. I'll ask
There
them what's
are,
up.
Jimmy, I think
So
three UL
you're
laboratories, 2 or 3 UL laboratories.
We're down to
that
2.
Handle,
We're down to 2 now.
that handle all the,
That do
the testing
the
requirements
testing
for under 122 and 123.
Yep.
I'll see if I can dig up some email addresses.
Yeah, no, we're down to 2. I think there was a few that merged. So they're down to 2. But most testing laboratories, believe it or not, are now overseas. Because I have friends that deal with testing labs, and my wife's company deals. They're all overseas now.
So they're sending guns overseas.
Yeah, well,
We've done that before,
no,
too,
that
right?
was Obama.
Yeah.
That was, yeah.
Yeah.
But beyond this, before
Eric
you
Holder.
even,
Fast and Furious,
Holder, yeah.
we're slow and
Just
a little
walking
bit-
right across the border.
Yeah.
but according to this, before you even build the gun, you have to report to the state how you're going to build it,
That's where
whether
the
you're using a kit, additive. So you
3D
have to
printing.
report something you haven't done yet.
Yeah.
So we're now into the territory of thought crime. I'm thinking about doing something. I better let the state know that I'm
First
having a
Amendment
thought.
violations,
Yeah.
Fourth Amendment violations.
Exactly.
We'll get into that shortly, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, it goes to define additive manufacturing. It talks about quote unquote downloadable gun code. That's where, I mean, to me, that's an obvious First Amendment violation. You can't You can't regulate against that. All right, where do we leave off? Licensing. My God, licensing. Section 54.
I got some questions for you on this, John.
Yeah, let's talk about changing the FID card to a quote-unquote long gun permit.
Okay. I'd rather not.
Let's not talk about that.
I still have my issued FID from when I was 15, valid until revoked.
You know, the funny thing is, I looked at the picture of my FID back then. I'm like, wow, I would never issue a license to that guy.
Jim, that's your thumbprint. Oh, my God.
I didn't realize I was a Batman character.
My face is
I looked terrible back then.
Well, I found it very interesting the way they phrased it. So they say it's a long gun permit, and it covers, that group of people for carrying common long guns.
Under 21.
The reason I find that interesting is the Second Amendment's always outlined that it covers arms in common use, and that the justification for things like the Gun Control Act, NFA, always said they're there to regulate uncommon firearms. So is this them trying to build in the language that anything that is not covered by the FID is an uncommon firearm and thus subject to further scrutiny?
That's possible, but I don't know if I don't know if I grant him that much imagination, honestly.
I don't think they're that smart, but
that's
I think
what I was trying to say. But they are that dumb. Yeah. So I don't know.
That's a stupid mistake that I think is not maybe that stupid. But.
Folks, we warned you about small children and little pets, so it's on you right now.
Long gun permit, the FID card goes away. Long gun permit, whatever the hell that means, comes into play. This bans anybody under 21 from acquiring or carrying any semi-automatic rifle or shotgun. We talked about that before, right?
You can't even have a 10-22.
Right.
Yep. Nope. Nope. And there's actually 20, not to get off check.
No,
there's actually 22 calibers that are in the now assault style firearm list.
M&P 1522.
Yeah.
Is in that massively expanded, massively
Remember,
expanded.
we've gone from a 2-feature
guns.
test with assault weapons down to a 1-feature test. So
Down
semi-automatic
to a single-feature
detachable
test.
magazine, if it has a pistol grip protruding beneath the action, that is now an assault weapon. If you have
I hate it when things protrude below the action.
Hey, it's hot out.
I hate it.
Whoa.
But
very humid. Very humid.
So
and I'd like to thank
people
our
have
sponsor, Gold Bond.
Brought to you by... if people have their way with law enforcement now, they're going to breach with a M&P 1522.
1522, right? Because that's an assault weapon
That's
now.
right.
Hey, that's a weapon of war. We should start issuing those to the service members because that's obviously the appropriate firearm to use, isn't it?
Hey, Ukraine, remember the M1 tanks we gave you? No, here.
We're going to give you a 1522
Here.
plinker. All right, licensing, mandating, providing licenses to law enforcement if you're outside your own property, even if you don't own or possess a gun.
Yeah.
What the hell does that mean? Am I
It
supposed to walk up to a cop
Nazi
and say,
Germany.
Yeah.
Show me your papers.
show me your papers?
That's exactly what it means.
Remember what I
That's
said
what-
before, Jim Crow.
Yeah.
Jim Crow.
That's what I was telling Jim in the parking lot over there. We should get numbers and tattoo them across the forehead.
Now, my people have been there.
Right?
Never again.
So if you have an issue, let's say you have an issue with local law enforcement in your area, they can now follow you around, and any time you step off your property, produce your gun license right now.
And if you don't, guess what? You're going off to the
even if you're not
shoot-a-who's
carrying,
gal.
even if you don't own a gun, anything that fits under there. If you have an LTC or this now long gun permit on demand, show us your papers, yeah.
Yeah, well, stop and frisk now includes a rubber glove.
Wait till they see where I keep my license.
That's right.
All right, retailer stuff. Go back to retailers briefly.
But let's go back to that, though.
Go ahead.
Can you imagine law enforcement actually doing any of this?
Oh, yeah.
You know what?
Well,
no. And
yes
I really,
and no.
I really, really wish they would come out and make a bigger public fuss about
They
it.
need
That's
to.
what bothers me. That's what bothers me. That's what I'm kind of like. I'm with the yes and no thing. You know, they'll grouse about it and they'll they'll
Seems
make
to be-
noises about standing with the people on the yes, I'm pro 2A. But if somebody hands them an arrest warrant, are they going to say no? I'm not.
Well,
I'm not
it
executing
seems
it.
to always.
Of course not.
It seems to always get very quiet as long as certain carve-outs are made.
Well, there are no carve outs here.
Yeah, there
Just
are. Yeah.
well, all right. There's a few.
Yeah, there's a few for law enforcement. They don't have to meet. I don't think they have to meet all the serialization stuff.
They don't have to meet all the training requirements that the citizens have to.
No.
But while on duty.
What?
But
yeah.
personally, the personally owned guns, I don't know if they are exempt.
I don't know. Especially since they can't carry off duty.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So good luck. Look at the broad spectrum of people this puts in danger. Not just law enforcement. How about district attorneys that can't carry now? They can't outside their house. How about domestic violence victims?
Yeah.
How about people of the rainbow community that continually say they feel unsafe? How about minority communities?
Yeah, the dumbest thing you could do is get a gun license at this point, because that's just another contact
Puts
point.
a target on your back.
So you're saying Michael Day hates gay people. He hates people of color. He hates
sure as
parental
hell kind of
choice.
sounds like that. Yes, I think I'd have to agree with you on
He
that.
sure as
Is
hell
All of
doesn't
these
mind throwing
sponsors.
everybody under
Yep.
the bus.
every single person that puts
Hates
their
law
name,
enforcement.
every single person that puts their name to this bill.
You truly, and again, let's go back to this. We are not the sky is falling. Everybody knows how rational I am and how reasoned I am. I've never said this in my life. You support this bill, you are flat out a fascist. There is no escaping this. You are flat out a fascist. And I never thought I would see this in this country. You know, there's 2 U.S. veterans sitting at this table. Never would have thought I would come home to this, ever. It is just inconceivable that an elected official in the birthplace of freedom that has now become its graveyard would even put this to paper. You're a fascist, period. There's no escaping that title now. You know?
Say,
I can't disagree with that. I got nothing to say to that. You're absolutely right.
yeah, I'll say compliance is voluntary. Doesn't mean it's consequence free, but it is voluntary. And hey, the way I look at it is, if I'm going to be a felon either way, shit, in for a penny, in for a pound.
In for a penny, in for a pound.
Drill that third hole. You may as well.
Not that I'm condoning violence, but we had a boss once at Goal that used to say, first murders were very expensive. All the rest are free.
We use the same analogy with hunting, don't we, Jeff?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Boy, that first
deer
goose,
costs a whole bunch of money.
That was an expensive goose, but the other ones are only a couple bucks a piece. You know?
If you ever added up how much that duck cost, you know, it's like,
Yeah, that shell was $1.
Like, I'm saving money.
never
I'm
mind the
saving money
shell.
by
What about the
shooting
bolt,
myself.
motor, gasoline, registration, the gun? You know, the shell was the least expensive thing there.
Now, God forbid someone actually might consider exercising any of their civil rights in this state. The new training mandates that are supposed to be that Michael Day is claiming that this is what Gull wanted, which is a complete load of utter horseshit.
Bullshit. It's 100% bullshit.
This is not what Gull asked for.
Attempting to work with the state police since 1998 on creating an open source. So first off, so everybody knows, Goal is 100% against government-mandated firearms training to exercise the Second Amendment civil right. We always have been. We're 100% for training. That's why we offer so much training and train the trainers. We truly believe in training, but that is part of the responsibility it takes to be a gun owner, in our opinion. With that said, we know that, listen, we just don't have the advocacy. We will have mandatory safety training. So we worked very closely with state police to try to convince them, create a Utah model, create an open source curriculum that doesn't require live fire, but urges live fire. Just follow the Utah model. And we were actually getting pretty close with that. And then this piece of shit hits the floor. And we can tell you that everything in this with regard to training, Goal 100% disagrees with.
Yeah, one of the things, so when people talk about what Goal was asking for in updating training and the licensing scheme, one of the things that Goal was looking for is saying, hey, with what we saw with COVID and everything else, if you have to submit your application, why not submit that online first?
Yeah, right.
Dot the T's,
Do
cross
the
the
state
I's,
stuff first,
do
and then
your background
right.
nonsense, and then if all that goes fine, then send it to the police chief, do your fingerprints, and
it's easy.
on with your day.
Yes, it was meant to simplify all that.
Yeah. But now they've changed,
And the Chiefs were on board with that.
Yeah,
They were.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It made their jobs easier.
yeah. This was not some crackpot theory. Like the police chiefs thought this was a
Yeah.
good idea.
So we're saying, like, if we have to have licensing at all, it's better that we do it this way, right?
Yeah. But now
It
you're going to have
simplifies
to
the process.
and I tried to read through the bill as best I could, but there wasn't anything outlined. It says that there's now going to be
Brain cells left.
written exam,
Written exam.
but it doesn't outline whether or not it is pass-fail in an exclusionary manner, where you have to pass it to what the objective standards are.
Oh, I'm sure.
It doesn't say what's going to be on this written exam.
Yeah. You have to take trainings, specific trainings on certain topics.
So injury prevention training, harm reduction education, active shooter and emergency response training, which they've always said, like, the idea, these are the people that claim a good guy with a gun can't stop a bad guy with a gun, but they want you to take active
Training on
shooter
it, yeah.
training.
They want it both ways.
Well, they want you to take active shooter training, but you're never allowed to carry where that might happen.
Right. Yeah.
So why?
So what's the point of taking training on that?
Now, here's the irony, Jeff.
Because the bad guy who doesn't have a license, he's going to be carrying.
The irony about all this training stuff, and I have to chuckle once in a while, because it's like the people who hate us, the people who hate guns, want us to be better at what we do. And it's like, are you serious? Really?
The irony.
Yeah, it is a little ironic, isn't it? Yeah.
So,
All right.
But obviously,
use of force training.
the legal training, use of force training, de-escalation and disengagement tactics, live fire training to be still TBD by the state police. Students have to meet new established minimum requirements.
DCJIS, I'm sure.
Now,
yep.
And in another change from what they're doing, instructors can no longer issue
That's right.
training certificates.
Yeah. Now, the de-escalation, my wife's got down. I'm not mad. You just go to bed.
Do you know, as an aside,
been
we were planning, and hopefully we still will be, we're going to be announcing a class happening this fall at Goal, specializing in de-escalation and disengagement tactics.
Yeah.
That's a real
We
thing.
have all kinds of real
Absolutely.
training.
We have some great trainers that are doing this, so I don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet, but that will be a class being offered this
The
fall.
point is, this is training that's encouraged and offered, not mandated by the state.
Correct.
But huge.
Well,
Your training instructor cannot issue you a recognized training certificate for that course.
Well, it won't
anymore.
matter because NRA, USCCA, all that training is gone if this passes.
Yeah.
They don't exist.
Yeah, right. All of the
These
LTC courses
do
are
not
blown
exist.
away, right? So there is no course.
No.
So this law passes day one, all 20, 729, how many are there?
29, not
29.
including Massachusetts Hunter Ed.
So this all get blown away day one to be replaced with who the hell knows
Something
what.
the state puts out, which is probably going to be about as fast as they put out all those PSAs about safe storage laws.
Yeah, which we're still waiting for 10 years later. Yeah.
So what you're going to have to do is take all of this training. Your instructor is then going to have to create the evil people list for the state to put into their docket. And then the state eventually, presumably, will then issue the student the training license from Department of Criminal Justice Information Services. And then when you go apply, as you, I guess, presumably normally would, the police chief for that town has to contact DCJIS to verify that their own training certificate is valid. So they're not even trusting their own state's training certificates.
And the zebra at the zoo is purple and leaning on its left side on a Wednesday while there's a hailstorm. And, oh, my God.
Hey, listen, I got some.
All
I
this
got
stuff's
some.
going to be put together by the Colonel of the State Police if it passes. That doesn't give me great optimism.
No,
No, especially since the colonel is appointed by the governor, and we know who the governor is right now.
it's
so,
a political position.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not really
Certainly.
a law enforcement position. It's political. So it's just
All right.
So
this one-
again, let's apply this to any other
any other right?
right.
Yeah.
You know, we've had before in U.S. history written exams to say vote, where you need permission from the government to go and speak openly.
Jim Crow.
Yeah. Or poll taxes or any of that stuff.
Jim
yeah.
Crow. So the one of the other ironic things is, live fire. When this first started coming around, it was a year or two before COVID, and Lenny Myra was a state rep there, who, by the way, lost his reelection by one vote because of redistricting. One vote. So Lenny Myra would hold these roundtables, and he'd have me there all the time. He'd have police. He'd have the moms. He'd have whatever. Yeah. And one of the meetings was about live fire. So I kept quiet, and I listened to the presentation from the two guys who were part of the moms and talk about how this is common sense and, look at driving, and you have to drive a car before you can get your license. And it went around the table, and even the gun owners were like, well, I can see, sure. It got to me, and Lenny said, wow, you've been quiet, Jim. He goes, what do you think? And I said, let me ask you all a question. What problem exists that this is supposed to solve. Mm-hmm. And they looked at me, well, what do you mean? Okay, we've had licensing since 1911. What problem exists that a live fire is intended to solve?
What is this going to address? How many accidents do we have?
We, on average in Massachusetts, now, here's the hysterical part. Compare it to driving. Mm-hmm. There are, believe it or not, there are only 5 times more licensed drivers than gun owners. 5 times, right? Mm-hmm. Just looked up the state's own accident data the other day. So I think the latest year was either 2020 or 21, because they're always a few years behind compiling this.
So, but COVID years.
Yeah. Mm. There were 0 accidental gun deaths. There were 450 automobile deaths.
That's a lot more than 5 times.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, those high-capacity, fully semi-automatic assault cars?
With the part that goes down, yeah.
So
with their bayonet lugs.
We know where there's a serious problem. We know where there's no problem.
Yeah.
So you're choosing to go after the no problem. And even John, when he was on the so-called listening tour panel, the meathead sitting next to him said, well, yeah, but it could happen.
It's like, that's not how you write laws, just by the way.
It's not how you write civil rights law.
Yeah.
This is a civil right.
Like, we're going to infringe now and ask questions later.
If you're going to restrict the civil right, there better damn well be a long history of a problem.
Yeah.
And there's
a compelling reason.
No, it's serious. You do not ever in this country put a mandate or a restriction on a civil right unless there is a serious outlined problem. And there isn't. Yep. There isn't. None of this stuff solves a problem. None of it. None of it. Because we know criminals don't follow the laws. And like everybody said, including the chairman, lawful gun owners are not the problem. Then what are we doing? The hell are we doing?
And they're not even coming after gun owners. They're coming after stores. They're coming after everybody.
Yeah.
So this is saying, the licensing authority training, or you're going to have to do training seminars just to have the business. And now you're going to have to go through state inspections annually, which apparently they were supposed to be
by
doing.
the state police.
Not now. Right now they're local. Now this is going to be state police.
Right. I'm not a retailer, so clear that up. Right now, retailers deal with their local police departments.
Yep. Yep.
Which
because
apparently
centralize all of that under a politically appointed colonel of the state police.
Which apparently that was happening, not happening, depending on all sorts of stuff.
It's the SS all over again.
But the response was not to hold the police department accountable. The response was to hold the firearms business accountable for that. When you have to provide your hours. You have to make time available for inspections.
Now,
it's part of the rules.
Yet another interesting aspect where they're moving these inspections to the state police. Wait a minute. You told us these weren't state licenses.
Yeah, right. So I guess they are state licenses? Or
you've told us for 25 years these are not state licenses. You've told us for 25 years the state has no authority over this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not for suitability.
And yet your certificate's going to have to come from the state now.
Wait, don't forget, the storage laws were based on child-proofing, right, from 1998. We talked about that in staff the other day. Yeah, it was all about child-proofing.
It was never intended to prevent criminal activity.
Never.
Jesus. All right, before we wind down the actual law part, let's dive in a little bit to assault weapons. Gonna love this one.
I've always hated that term. Always hated that term.
Yep. All right. So, let's see real quickly. Transportation. Any large capacity firearm under the new definition must be transported, unloaded, and locked in a container. That's
nothing
transportation.
Under the new definitions of locked container.
Yes. Right.
So it's not just a plastic box now, or even an ammo can.
Will deter all but the most persistent from gaining access.
Now remember, that was tried. In, don't ask me the exact case. It was in Lowell maybe 10 years ago. Guy built a vault in his basement, and these people knew he was on vacation. They estimate that these criminals were in his basement for 2 to 3 days by the food that was left.
Sawing and hacking.
Trying to get into that room.
Guns.
And they still charged him.
With a storage violation.
Yep.
Jesus.
Because it's saying the most persistent. Now, here's a question.
Who is the most persistent person in the world?
Based on tools? Skills, mechanical ability.
You ever seen that scene in Stripes where they use C4 to blast? Are you guys locking this from the inside too?
All right, here we go. Section 57.
So that means all of the vaults.
Yeah, that people build. Yeah.
No more.
In order to
Again,
spend
vaulted
$10,000, $20,000
No
on a
good
vaulted
anymore.
room. Yeah. All right, persons can voluntarily surrender their firearms to the licensing authority.
That's new.
Thank heaven for
State
that,
police
right?
had the only, prior to this, the only exemption under law was to turn guns into the state police.
State police. Professional photographers and writers are exempt from long gun permits. What does that mean? Hollywood.
Protect your media.
Well,
There you go.
wait. So if I'm a professional photographer,
I'm a podcaster.
This actually, believe it or not, came from. It was a reporter from Vice News that went to a build party and he
the
didn't have
AK
a
in
license.
California.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that's where this comes from.
So they want anti-media to be able to handle guns.
So that they can continue to write
Right.
their nonsense.
oh, was that the guy that had an ND with a AR-15 and then said he had PTSD for life?
No, he.
Oh no, that was
that was the guy from the
that was the military
the news
guy.
state. Yeah. And then there was
and there's a 10-year-old girl going, I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah, the response video is like shooting it with the buttstock up against her nose. Like, really? So, all right. Anyway,
That's like you guys ever seen that reel about? I think the kid worked at Starbucks. They make me work a whole shift.
I can't
It's
believe. Oh no, terrible. All right. Common carriers must comply with storage and transport laws.
See, we use the term triggered, but it's for a whole different purpose.
Right, and that one line, that's going to put the kibosh on dealers in Massachusetts.
That's
There's
it.
just no way that our common carriers can comply with that.
That's the end of licensed dealers in Massachusetts.
So
That's
the end of handgun sales in Massachusetts, right? Under the Gun Control Act of 1968, we can't go to a dealer in another state and buy a handgun.
Right.
We can buy compliant rifles and shotguns, but
From other states.
ultimately, I think, yes, from dealers from other states. So ultimately, I think that's going to lead us just to be able to own common long guns.
You would probably, and I don't even know, honestly, if this would qualify. You would probably have to hire Brinks to go get your stuff and bring it in the state. But I don't even know if that would qualify.
I don't know.
I probably
Who is going to be sufficiently, adherent to the storage and transport laws?
Now, remember, that means even barrels, receivers,
Means everything.
frames, and feeding devices. Everything.
All right.
So
if someone
right.
wants to ship a case of PMags from Georgia up to
Maine.
It's
going to have to go by sea. To it by
Because
sea.
the other part of this too is if you think this is coming to Massachusetts, or if you live outside of Massachusetts and you think crap like this isn't coming to your state, you're painfully wrong.
Yeah, it's ignorance. Yeah, of course.
But
If you live
remember,
in-
this was just a ghost gun bill.
Right. This
and-
was
and
ghost
assault
guns
weapons.
and live fire, right?
But if
Or
you
is this
live-
something
We
if you
need to
live
remind
in
our
the-
listeners that they need to contact their elected officials. Say you were lied to. Day and his ilk lied to everybody. They looked us in the face. They shook our hands. The sons of bitches lied to all of us.
All right, assault weapons, no exemptions, no grandfathering for anything not owned before or after September 13th,
and that
1994.
includes everything, even after Moore's edict that they said you could buy.
Right. That
Tavors.
They came right out and said, right,
Gone.
Tavors are on the Kel-Tec Sub 2K's on the list for crying out loud. High Point Carbine is on the list.
I was talking with Toby down at Cape Gun Works, and he opined that looking at the guns, long guns we would be able to sell that were semi-automatic, he named two. And that was it.
Jesus.
Two
That was it.
semi-automatic centerfire long guns, centerfire or rimfire for that matter, that would be saleable in Massachusetts should this pass.
Because of the features test. and
Because of the features test.
And you
So it's
gotta-
a single feature test now.
Correct.
If it's semi-automatic and has one feature.
So semi-automatic detachable magazine. So
Yep.
if it has a pistol grip beneath the action, illegal. If it has a flash suppressor, illegal. Bayonet lug,
yeah.
illegal.
yeah.
Telescoping.
Anywhere to
folding
put your
stock.
second hand.
And they further defined telescoping and folding stocks. Any stock that is adjustable in the least. So we look at some of these precision
Oh,
rifle
yeah.
stocks.
It's got an adjustable cheek cone.
Right. Absolutely.
Yep,
illegal.
that is now an adjustable stock.
Yeah.
Small
So-
bore rifle shooters,
What-
our Olympic rifle shooters, they're screwed under this.
What we need to make very clear, too, and I've known this for a long time, they are not going to confiscate your guns.
Nope.
They have no intention or desire
No, that's politically
to confiscate your
that's-
guns.
That's not politically a good idea.
They're simply going to make it illegal to possess everything. And then they got you if they want you. Now, think about what that means.
One by one.
One by one, you step out of political line, we're going to find a reason to visit your home.
Yep.
If you have any of these things, you're going to prison for 10 years.
Yep, they'll send the IRS agent with a local law enforcement officer. We need to come into your residence, sir. And by the way, where's your gun license?
Wait until you have to call emergency services. Who's the first to the door?
The blue lights,
Blue
not the red
lights.
lights.
They see anything. You know, even a fake domestic violence call. Good luck.
Think of what this is going to do to families, right? You have family members that say, I can't stay in Massachusetts, so now they have to leave an aging parent. Because if they stay in Massachusetts, they risk going to jail for 10 years.
Yes.
You know, it's funny you say that because when Healy did her thing, our big thing was Healy hurts families, and nobody understood it.
That's what we're getting after. Yeah,
Yeah.
you turn people into criminals who have no criminal intent.
They will flee.
Yeah.
They have to.
Yeah.
They have no choice.
Or worse.
Or worse.
Because I don't think they're prepared for what might come their way. Because they can't conceive of it. So, Mr.
Yeah.
Speaker, be careful. You are treading on unexplored political territory in this state and in this modern age.
Well, I would say that this is not unexplored political territory. It just hasn't been explored in a couple hundred years.
Well said, Mr. Strider.
I just said modern age.
It's modern enough.
That explains a lot of things about your fake birthday, but okay. Why does he own stocks from 1783?
Modern age means something differently.
Vampire Jeff Strider.
What I tell people is I will be as honest and law-abiding with the government as they are with me.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
If you don't like that, welcome to the show.
Well, look at Renee's daughter, Liv,
Yep.
that stood up and say, I just want to be protected like you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he looked at her and lied to her face and might as well have just spit right in her
Now,
face.
here's another irony.
Did I say Michael Day hates children?
Yes.
Add that to the list.
Yeah. If this thing actually, first of all, does have a hearing in the State House,
Yeah.
and logistically, I don't know how they're going to do it. Because civility is going to be out the window.
All right, let's. Okay, so the text of the bill goes a lot further than what we've talked about, right? Everybody should go to goals.
we haven't
goals
even
breakout
really,
page.
we haven't really touched the prohibited areas and sensitive.
Yeah,
places.
we
it's
talked
just-
about that stuff. You know, we can't like exhaustively break down the whole thing.
Folks,
we talked about
go to our page.
yes.
Read the bullet points. It won't take you long. There are stuff that's probably missing at this point. We don't care.
Yep.
Just look at the bullet points. But if this thing gets to a hearing, do you know the security you're going to have to go through? That they are now denying us to even get in and say you hate this bill? Think about that. The security they are denying citizens now, you will have to go through. Because, by the way, now, there's brand new security systems and
Yep.
checkpoints in the State House. Every doorway now has 2 state police officers that have, by the way, a whole new division, State House security. So as the police state grows, our ability to protect ourselves from just the average thug is disappearing.
It's not even
This
our
is-
ability to protect ourselves. This is the security they refuse to afford school children.
So the point that you're making is the expansion of the police state. I mean, this is not, 10 or 15 years ago, this would have been like tinfoil hat category. It was like, what are you, crazy? What do you libertarians, what the hell are you talking about? The state's not interested in taking away your right to self-defense. Well, guess what? That's actually bullshit. They're centralizing power to themselves, giving themselves protections that they are, like you say, actively denying to the rest of us.
Look at what is, this is global, but look at what is happening in the UK and Canada.
Yeah.
They are not free countries anymore.
Nope, not anymore.
Not even close. If you violate, say, Facebook standards in the UK,
you can go to jail.
You're arrested.
Yeah.
3,300 people last year were arrested. Canada. Oh, my God. If you don't use somebody's pronouns, you can go to jail.
Yeah. That's an arrestable offense.
It's a police state. So, again, we're not tinfoil hat group. We've never been this way.
Yeah.
This is how serious this is.
Happening.
There really is a group of state troopers whose job is to protect the Politburo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you plebes, you
and speaking of the
peasants aren't allowed
Politburo,
to.
have you noticed how quiet the media has been with this?
Mm-hmm.
Normally they'd be singing it from the rooftops.
Well, I've seen it a couple of like local papers, but that's it. It's not being
nice and quiet.
We only received one call for a statement. One call. And that was a Springfield station, WWLP.
Yeah.
Who afterwards, I reached out to the woman because I do a lot of work with her and said, hey, they didn't post the story. She said, oh, I'll check on it. And she had to remind them to post the story. 3 days later, they posted the story. This is an intentional silencing of the media because even the media can't defend this. Imagine if this was the First Amendment. You have to go through training. You have to be licensed.
Cities would be in flames.
The state has to approve for you to speak out in public.
Yeah.
And we will approve and review for suitability what you write and what you publish.
All right. We want to talk about information stuff because I've had that question a couple of times from a couple of different people asking me about my analysis of that, and I have to say that I'm not entirely sure. Obviously they're going to gather up everything they can, but how public is that likely to be?
I still don't think it includes your name.
Okay.
But that's about it.
But it includes enough, probably.
Well, look at what happened this past fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's definitely there. It's just like, what the heck was it? It was after Newtown. Was it Rhode Island or Connecticut or something? When a newspaper published all the names.
Oh,
of
yeah.
New York.
Yes.
That was New
They
York.
posted a map or something, right?
Yeah,
Didn't they
New York.
do a
Yeah.
Google map.
And then somebody struck back and posted a map of where all the
Texas.
reporters live. Yeah.
How about the report of Texas? All the red dots are gun owners, and the whole complete state of Texas was red.
This was a map of all where reporters lived. And they screamed bloody
they
murder.
did. Of course they did.
Yeah, right.
like,
You can't
whoa.
do that to our privacy.
Oh, wait a minute here. So, yeah.
All right. So it's likely to be pretty, well, it's going to be more public than we certainly want.
Yeah.
Current status of the bill. It was a late file. Okay.
Late file, so that's why, everything starts with a docket number until it gets a permanent number, which means it's gone through its first reading in the clerk's office.
Okay.
The bill, before it even received a real bill number, in one day, by the way, went through House rules, joint rules, and was reassigned to Judiciary in one day.
Which the Judiciary Committee, by the way, who is chaired by,
Dun, dun, dun.
Michael Day, the guy that wrote this tripe.
Yep.
Or, well, who, put his name on this
Who, by
tripe
the
after
way, is a
moms wrote it for
practicing
him.
attorney. Imagine that. The guy's a practicing attorney, and he thinks this is cool.
Yeah.
I think if you wipe your ass with the Supreme Court decisions, you should probably be dispartisan attorney.
So it sits in the Judiciary Committee. What's the next step? It's got to get a hearing? Or it's got to be passed out of committee?
We don't know.
Okay, what would normally be the next steps?
The next step would be a hearing,
Okay.
and then the committee would have to vote to release it, but it's the Speaker's bill, so it's going to be released.
It's going to be released.
So remember what they did last June, though, was what they threw a gun bill in as an amendment to a technology bill.
That's right. Yeah.
So if it's an amendment to an existing bill, they don't have to hold a hearing or release it from committee because it's just amendment language.
Even if they did hold a hearing on this bill, it is such a massive rewrite. When you go to the State House representing all of us, Jim, what the hell are you going to say in 3 minutes?
You can't.
To rebut 140 plus pages of
You can't.
Yeah.
nonsense.
My first question to the committee will, did you bring a lunch?
Yeah. Did you bother reading the Constitution?
But I will guarantee you this. If they do hold a hearing, it's going to be a short one. They're going to put a real hard stop. So if thousands of people show, on either side. It won't matter.
Yeah.
They're going to listen to you for a couple hours and then, okay, we're done. Move on. If you want to contact us, put it in writing and move on. So, I've sat through hearings in my career for 10 hours, never being able to testify. So Jamie Eldridge is the Senate chair, and even though he's completely anti-us, we're still cordial because I've known Jamie since he was a driver for people in his young days. But I just, for the first time in my career, I'm going to say, I don't know how they're going to keep this civil. You're destroying an entire community, and you think you're going to be able to hold a civil hearing? I don't see it happening. I just don't. And it's their fault. It's their fault.
Yeah.
They dropped the gauntlet. It's their fault. Whatever comes their way is their fault. Again, I'm not invoking violence or condoning it. But learn from the far left. What have they done to get their way in the last decade?
Civil disobedience.
Severe civil disobedience.
To put it lightly.
Yeah.
Severe. So I'm going to tell you what, if I was at all cordial with the chairman at this point, I'd advise him not to. Don't hold a hearing because you are going to lose control of it fast. But that's neither here nor there. The other thing I want to touch on too is, and John and I and the staff have been going back and forth. People keep saying, when are you going to hold a rally? When are you going to hold a rally? Well, last time we did, 20 people showed up.
Yeah.
Now, I know you're all pissed off finally, but rallies are really good morale boosters for the people who attend.
Yeah.
But they serve no political purpose.
They don't change any minds.
John's been saying it, you got to get local. You got to get local. You got to get local. And if you don't, well, we're going to see what happens anyway, but you've got to make anyone who even wants to consider debating this bill, you got to make their life miserable. You just have to. Learn from the left. Learn from the left. You taught us, government taught us how to protest by not doing anything. Again, I'm not condoning violence. I'm not condoning destroying property. But the far left was literally burning down cities, and the Democrats wouldn't do anything.
No, it was mostly peaceful, and then let's hear him out.
It reminded me of Baghdad Bob in the first Iraq War when M1 tanks were rolling behind him. No, there's no Americans here. That is a lie.
Yeah, right. As they're rolling up behind him, yeah.
And they're waving at him. Hey! It's just you taught us how to do things. Don't yell at us if it happens.
Yeah. Now, a question that's been going around is who else is involved as far as on the Second Amendment side between Firearms Policy Coalition, Gun Owners of America, Second Amendment Foundation. So,
are you prepared to speak about strategy and who you've been talking to?
The first thing about Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club.
There you go.
I've had this throughout my career, even in public speaking engagements. Well, what's your strategy? Well, I'm not telling you, because guess where it's going to be? All over the internet. So nobody outside, well, I shouldn't say nobody, a couple people outside this room know who we're talking to and what we're talking to them about. We are not going to advertise our strategy on anything because, again, be the cup, right?
Yeah.
You got to be fluid. A strategy today may not be there tomorrow because something has drastically changed. As far as any group that sincerely wants to help, welcome to help. But coordinate with us. Don't just say you're working with us and you're not.
Don't just jump out on your own and say, right.
So there are a couple of groups nationally that have a history of doing that.
Yeah.
And, we're trying to work with everybody that wants to actually work. Don't ever think that there are groups back there that are traditionally, the NSSF isn't doing anything and the NRA isn't doing anything. How the hell do you know?
Yeah.
You have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. You have no idea what's been offered to us from a bunch of different groups.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't advertise
that stuff. So suffice it to say, Goal is obviously aware fully engaged, and working strategies behind the scenes. That's all we need to know.
Every avenue of approach is being covered. We just don't talk about it.
So what we need people to do, this is the call to action part of the show, all right? Get engaged, like you said, on a local level. Find out who your legislators are in a state level and start, like you said, making their lives miserable.
And nothing beats doing that person to person. Right? They don't have to open up their emails. They don't have to return a phone call. Find out where they are and politely, with respect, at least initially, convey the concerns with this bill as what it is. We've been lied to. Everybody outside of the sponsors has lied, and we need to bring that to the forefront.
There's no other way to put that. I mean, they took every bit of good faith and they just pretty much pissed in everybody's faces.
Contact your local police chief. They need to publicly come out against this and condemn it. You know, they should come out and say, Mr. Speaker, we are not doing this to our citizens. Don't talk about amendments. Don't talk about fixing it. They need to come out publicly. They're public servants that took an oath. Come out. Finally come out and say, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah, because there isn't a cop in this state that would willingly comply with the firearms restrictions that the average citizen has to comply with.
Well, yeah.
Well, we have a ton of great police chiefs. We have a ton of great police officers. And now we, the citizens, we're asking you to step out on our behalf. And
on your behalf.
On your own behalf, absolutely. You're not treated any better than we are outside of your badge if this bill becomes law.
Matter of fact, worse, because you guys have the Post Commission now.
Right. Yeah, right.
So, you know, they literally will yank your permit on a moment's notice. So this, like I said, this affects every walk of life. The other thing that nobody's paying attention to, this is going to ring the dinner bell for criminals. They will know without any doubt in their mind that they can do anything they want. If you're a cop, you're now a target. All they have to do is watch your home. They know you can't leave with your gun. They can take you and your family out. You're a victim of domestic violence. You can no longer carry to protect yourself. You're a target. It is going to be the most target-rich environment since the escape route from Kuwait in the first Iraq War. You don't have enough cops. You certainly don't have enough DAs. And we already know the courts don't give a shit. So what do you think's going to happen? It's going to be a feeding frenzy.
That's some scary shit, Jim. But it's the fact of the matter.
Yeah.
All right. John, closing statements, closing thoughts?
I'm begging everybody in the listening audience, you've got to become an advocate. We've been begging you for 25 plus years, 50 years to become an advocate. This is your last chance. This is the hill, folks. This is absolutely the hill. Get involved while you still can.
You can't sit this one out. You can't say, "Oh, this is so bad, it's never going to pass."
You can't fight this from behind a friggin' keyboard.
That's right.
There you go.
You can't. No civil rights fight has ever been won in this country by staying at home and bitching on a chat room. Get off your ass and do what you need to do to save your freedom while you still have it. Because otherwise it's gone. Because 4 staffers or 9 board members cannot do this damn work for you. We can tell you what's going on. We can lead the ship. But ain't no sailing ship in history ever had 4 crew members. Get off your ass. Do what you need to do. We've been doing this for 25 years. I've risked my life doing this job. Get it done.
Garrett, your closing thoughts?
As far as I'm concerned, we can roll credits right there.
All right, that's it. Thanks for listening in. Be sure to subscribe to the Gold Podcast and visit us on www.gold.org and join us today.
That's it. Folks, you got to get involved. Gold.org, the Gold Podcast. Watch us on social media. Get out and get in touch with your legislators. This is critical time. The Goal Podcast is a production of Gun Owners Action League of Massachusetts. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of Goal, its staff, or affiliates.